Hello, welcome to another episode, Season 2, Episode 1 of HR Nightmares, where we love to bring realistic advice to our audience and go through some awesome stories, all those salacious stories that we would have written a book about as HR experts, but we just don't feel like sitting down behind a computer for more hours than we already do. I'm here with the OG.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm one of the consultants with Leath HR Group. If this is your first time tuning into us, usually there's more of us here, but right now it's just me and Lisa on
It's
this
okay.
episode. So
This is going to be
fun
fun.
little intimate episode.
An intimate episode, and I'm actually quite looking forward to just kind of reflecting on season 1 of everything that we did. When we were talking about, kind of the layout of today's episode and how we're kicking off 2023 for our audience, we thought it might be nice to reflect a little bit on where we started last year when we started recording with, by the way, like shout out to the Signal Fire guys who help us produce. But we started with an episode called You Can't Make This Crap Up.
Is that what our first episode was?
That was the name of it. Thank you, Gabby. But honestly, I think it's perfect because at the end of the day, what we're trying to accomplish here is a little bit of a different vibe for a podcast for anyone from like business owners to other HR professionals to employees that just simply want to listen for good advice or write in and get some free HR advice from HR experts because usually we're not free if you hire us. So this is a good opportunity to like get access to us for a couple of minutes. So don't hesitate to write in. The link is in the bio anywhere where you're listening to us. And by the way, you can watch us on YouTube. We have a playlist called HR Nightmares on the Leath HR Group YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And then we're anywhere where you listen to your podcast. So remember when we started this, you can't make this crap up. Like, what kind of stuff were we thinking about we were going to share with people?
I think just everything. I just think it's been incredible to kind of see even just who is writing into us is clearly who is listening to us, right? And we get so much from the actual employees. And I think I was expecting it to be a little bit more like from the business owners or from HR professionals. And I think we've seen a lot more than we thought from the actual employees or managers or people. I mean, we've got to write in to talk about probably on today's episode that's like, should I go to HR about this, right? And that's what we're seeing a lot of. So I think what our intention is to be relatable HR folks for people to be able to come to and to kind of make sure that we're representing what HR really should be and hopefully can be at all of these different companies. And who we try to be when we're working with our companies is really approachable, relatable, informational people who know what we're talking about, but do it in a way that we can deliver it to employees and make people feel comfortable and good about it.
And also staying on trends and tapping into our network of other business professionals that might not be HR folks, but they can teach us a lot.
Yeah.
And I think when we look back on the cast of characters that we had in season 1, we're very privileged to have interviewed people, the likes of which started with Joe Conway, a chief diversity guy for the city of Wilmington, North Carolina, followed by somebody like Lindsay Cashin, who is so phenomenal with the Honor Foundation, all the way to like KO, who was really stepping out on a socially forward business in true colors. And they've now had a lot of learnings with that business. But I mean, geez, you think about just the wisdom that she brought to the conversation about just caring for people as humans and treating people like humans in a company where they were having active gang members like brew and drink beer at work.
Yeah. Well, I think, just we've had a really nice variety of people. We've had a financial advisor come in, right? We've had employment attorneys, 2 employment attorneys, one who's an employment attorney and now owns a business in tech, right? Those are 2 really different things. We've had HR people, right, from the community, from nonprofit, from private business, from public business. Even Tiffany Tucker, education at UNCW. That was
big energy,
super fun episode.
Yes.
And we all love Tiffany, and she's a friend.
But lots of words of wisdom. I mean, everybody had, and we try to do less talking when we have guests in here, but Yeah, lots of words of wisdom. So if you've not heard any of the episodes from season 1, please go back and check them out. I encourage anybody tuning in right now to also go check out the Leath HR group and HR Nightmares TikTok that Gabby has put together. It's got lots of kind of just couple of minute micro clips with our guests and our HR experts on our panel between you, me, Beth, Gabby when she's in the studio. But I think there's a lot of learning that you can do, even if you've got 2, 3, 5 minutes, and just log into TikTok and view a couple of those and leave your comments. Leave your comments. We get a lot of questions from the audience on TikTok, on our YouTube channel, through the link in the form on our website, leathhrgroup.com. So go back and definitely check out season 1. Just a couple of shout outs as well. We had Madison Bradburn, who was a previous Leath HR Group consultant, come on and talk about recruiting. Mental health.
Was a popular episode.
That was
like
oh.
there's a micro clip on our social media channels, probably like TikTok or Instagram or something. But that TikTok where she talked about red flags on resumes, and it's I think like her and I kind of talking on that clip. It has like a lot hundreds of thousands of views.
Yes,
it's huge.
Yes, I think it's almost up to like 700,000 views right now.
So that was a really popular episode, and I think that
it's provocative.
A lot of our listeners want to know like what's going on with resumes and recruiting, and all these things happening as the job market has been pretty ever-changing the last couple of years.
And I mean, look, these are our opinions as HR professionals, and people have been doing this for 20 years. But also we're people who try to stay on top of trends and do customized work for all of our business clients with Leath HR Group and then me at Vanica. But, so challenge us. If you don't agree with us, we ask you to challenge us and write those comments in so that we can challenge ourselves and think about, maybe that wasn't the right way to approach that, or maybe those weren't the resume flags. Well, tell me.
We had reflecting back. I remember, I think it was episode 1. I think
Joe?
It might have been. It was whenever Joe was on it. So it might have been the first one we recorded, and then he was on with us after, but we recorded him at the same time. I don't remember. But we had talked about that background check thing. And that we wouldn't have hired someone who had the criminal record that they had for a certain position, right? And then Joe came on the next episode after I think we had recorded that. And he mentioned briefly he had no idea that we had just talked about this or answered this question. And he talked about people have done their time and they deserve an opportunity and something along those lines, right? And trying to rewrite that kind of mentality of, if you've got this on your record, you're never going to get a serious job again. And that's not the right thing either. So, and it was interesting because we all kind of paused and were like, do we need to go back and re-answer that question? And it did make me think. Now, I think we ultimately said based on the position that person was interviewing for, we probably would still stick to that guidance. But I have to say, it made me think about it.
Yeah.
And I have that conversation a lot with clients about backgrounds. And it is one of those like, let's really talk this through a little bit more than I might have a decade ago.
Yeah. I agree. Awesome. That's a great example. The other one that I loved was having Dory Weiss, who had kind of an interesting path to get to where she was as the head of an engineering department for, a public company that it was a unicorn company that eventually went public. But phenomenal leader, human-centric leader. I think a key theme of all of our guests from season 1 was just human-centric.
Yeah. They felt very they were really aligned with who we're trying to be, right? And who we are as just relatable leaders, people who care a lot about the people, like sharp and smart and really understand their businesses and the things that they're doing, but always have the people in the front of their mind as they're making decisions about those businesses. And that felt really good.
Remember Eden Arthur that was in here and she was running like a multinational team and at PPD, like a international CRO that's now part of Thermo Fisher. And she was just, I remember the one key takeaway I had with her was she was talking about how she allows her international teams to speak in their native language before the meeting gets started or during the meeting when they have complicated work to do. And she doesn't force anyone to speak in English because that's the language she speaks. She trusts them to get the work done and fill her in and ask her questions in English when she needs to weigh in. But I I thought more about that after that episode, and I just thought, wow, it's so simple, but a lot of people are just too selfish to even take that small step.
Yeah, or don't take the time, right? They feel rushed to get through that meeting and get the information, and they use those meetings as an information dump versus what it is, which is a culture building moment and a team bonding moment, and we'll get the data and the information regardless of whether we have that meeting or not, right?
Yeah.
So it's making sure that, what's the intention here, and are we getting the most out of our people by having meetings like that if they can't even speak in their native language, right?
Yeah.
And she said, no, we're going to change that.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
A big hot topic for us in season 1 was when we'd have audience write-ins about PTO and like the interplay of like PTO and leaves and sick time.
Yeah.
And so, more of that. If you guys that are listening, if you have questions that are related to PTO, we'll have more lawyers in. We might have the same lawyers in. We might have different lawyers in. And certainly we'd love to hear from our audience about who do you want to see on this podcast, and who do you think would come into the studio, or we could get hooked up through Zoom to interview for an interesting interview that would be honest and be willing to tell stories that are entertaining enough for you guys. And we want to learn too. So feel free to let us know who you're interested in seeing on HR Nightmares this season.
Yeah. What do you think your favorite episode was of the first season?
I would have to say it was probably the Dory episode, until we had Jonathan from Shuck and Shack.
You enjoyed it. Was it the Christmas sweaters for you? That's what made the difference.
I love my
ugly
kitschy
Christmas
things.
sweaters.
Well, I also love the fact that like we made you dig for an ugly Christmas sweater.
Oh my God. It wasn't that ugly.
It wasn't about my Christmas sweater. It was about
mine.
making you put one on. But no, I did love the fact that that's just an interesting business, right? We talked to KO, who was a little bit sort of in hospitality, right? They're brewing.
Yeah.
They're in the food and service industry with True Colors. But then Jonathan, who took a small little kind of dive bar, helped grow it from a couch into, a multi-state franchise with great food, good atmosphere. He doesn't take himself too seriously, and he gets hospitality workers to stick around. It's hard enough to get people to stick around.
I mean, the tenure
white collar businesses.
It's Shuck and Shack. It's pretty incredible.
Woo, woo. I wish I had a cowbell. But I mean, honestly, I loved his approach. And I went on to tell people about, you got to tune into this episode, because this guy even gives an example about how, hey, if somebody's got a bartender's got a broke down car and they need $300 to get the tire rod fixed or whatever. And I'm like, here's my credit card. Go get it fixed. I need you at work tonight.
Yeah.
And it's just like so moving how a small thing for him and the business as a whole, like from a bottom line standpoint, can make a giant difference in someone's actual life. And drive loyalty, but also he gets the guy to show up for his shift. So
yeah, well,
it's just, again,
I think
small.
he said it. It's like what feels like the right thing to do, and leading with like humanity first and running the business second. It's like,
what feels like the right thing to do?
Yeah.
And then can I do it? And maybe I can't do
Yeah.
it. Maybe I can't do the full 300. Maybe I could throw you like 100 spot.
right,
But
right.
he just took a different approach rather than rowing against and thinking everybody's out for the worst.
You're
He
just saying, I need you to be at your shift, though, so figure it out.
Yeah,
Which a lot of managers probably would say.
I would say, in all my experience working in hospitality, I grew up in a hospitality family where my dad managed restaurants. My mom was an HR manager for like a restaurant conglomeration. Like a lot of, and then me being a server all through college at all different, I had the Flair at TJ Fridays, Chili's, Ruby Tuesdays, you name
She
it.
talks
I
about
was
TJ
there.
Fridays a lot.
I love I got to wear my Flair one day. I should have worn it actually when Jonathan was here, but we'll have another hospitality person in. But I will say that is not the norm whatsoever. And like probably not in retail either. Like I worked at the Gap was my first job. So they would have said,
no.
I think go away if I didn't make it in for a shift because my car broke
I
down.
think I worked for a unique retailer, and I think Nordstrom, for the most part, was a company that's like what feels like the right thing to do. And that's how we were with customers, right? Just return it, just return it, just return it, right? Like,
well, that's why you
stop
guys
asking
have a very
questions,
unique
like,
reputation.
just make it happen. The answer is yes. Like, that was our motto.
Yes.
The answer is always yes, right? And if someone says no, I'm the only one that gets to say no. You guys need to all say yes, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we led. So we were, pretty unique in that way. But to make sure that every single department manager, I was a store manager and I had 20 managers with me, and then they managed the 200 and some employees, right? To make sure they all had that same, like, leading with that heart first or people first. I mean, I'm sure there were many examples of times where they were the manager that said, figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out. I need you to cover your shift,
Well, what's so crazy is right now, just like I love that we're able to get for the new season 2 as well, we're able to turn around a lot of these episodes in a more timely fashion so we can actually talk about things that are on trend. And right now, just some of these tech companies, I mean, you look at the cryptocurrency world,
Oh, gosh,
you look
yeah.
at Twitter and what's going on with Elon Musk, and he's taking polls about should I be your CEO and like firing everyone and doing it by email.
I have
It's just so
no words for any of that.
okay. Yeah. And I'm like, everything that we coach
I
businesses
cannot.
and managers for our entire career is all about like doing the right thing, protecting the business, of course, but being kind of a dual advocate for the employees as well as the employer. Because if
Yeah.
you take care of the employees, ultimately they're going to stay and take care of the clients and the customers.
Right.
So like,
right.
it's just so awful to me what's going on and how people are being treated with no integrity or respect. And you're playing with human lives here, right?
Yeah.
The most personal thing next to your family, your puppies, whatever, is your job. And to be told over email that you no longer have a job and get your shit and go is like the worst thing
Yeah.
ever.
I mean, I can't even imagine, right? And it's like, do you not have HR people to help you with that?
Is
Do you
no
not-
one telling you this
have
is
you
terrible?
never made? I mean, we've saw what was that one that recently, violated WARN by doing that, right? There's a law that says,
Oh,
like,
the WARN,
hey,
yeah, the WARN Act. Yeah.
you've gotta give people a certain amount of notice when you're making this amount of layoff. There is a legal standard for it. And that company is not a new company, right?
Yeah,
And I'm
who
like,
is
have you
guiding
never
them
had
and
to make
advising them?
decisions like this before in the last couple of decades? I can't imagine. Yes, who is guiding you?
So what do
And
we think is going on?
no wonder
to me,
you're
it's
losing
an
your company.
egotistical figurehead that doesn't want anyone else's advice, right? And so they
Right.
think they know everything, but in fact, there's a lot that they don't know, and they're screwing it all up. And I could imagine there's like tons of like people probably would have said, "I understand financially. You explained to me. We kind of took big risks. We made big investments. We spent
Yeah.
too much money. We shouldn't have hired this many people. I get it. I don't like it. I need to find a job now, but I get it." But they did no explaining. So now people are pissed. So they're probably dealing
Yeah.
with like EOC claims, DOL claims, just like all kinds of crap that they
Right.
could have avoided if they
The
just treated people
aftermath
nicely.
of not doing it in the right way is so much worse than taking the time to stop and like actually approach it in the right way, pay people for the time that they're owed, give people the correct amount of notice. It's not going to make it easier. It's still a really hard decision,
Yeah.
but I think I in 20 years of being with the same company, I went through so many different reorgs and consolidations and, layoffs in mass ways of entire teams, right? Outsourcing the whole entire tech team, right? And having to
Yeah.
remove that whole department from the organization. Those were never easy decisions, but I'm so proud to have worked for a company that we always did it in the right way, and it was well thought through, and we were respectful of the people. We took care of everyone as best as we possibly could based on the fact that it was a tough business
Yeah.
decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel lucky too. I mean, growing up with Corning, it was the same way.
Yeah.
Like you get hugs from people as you were telling them, like
Yeah.
your job was eliminated. But you know what? When you treated them that way, when you had openings in the future, a lot of times we'd call people that we had to let go
Yes.
2 years
Yes.
ago and be like, "Do you want to come back?" And they were like,
Yeah.
"Yes," first through the door. If we treated them like fire them by email, would they have come back 2 years later? Likely no.
No, absolutely
So
not.
there's just a lot of downside to treating people like robots, and it's bigger than just making quick decisions and
Yeah.
getting the ship to turn quickly.
Yeah, I think you're
gotta
kind
do
of
the right
right in
thing.
the way it like circles back to, what our intention, for season 2 is to be able to like talk about some of this stuff
Yes.
and also provide, maybe there's smaller companies out there listening that are going to have to make some of these tough decisions and don't have the resources. They don't have people who have been doing this for 20 years and have experienced those kind of things in their last jobs. And we can talk about, okay, well, what's the right way to take to do something like this, right? Like, what do we need to do? How much time do we need to give people? Like, what are the guidelines for that?
Yeah.
And be able to talk about a little bit more of that and share. And hopefully we'll get lots of good questions and listener write-ins, and maybe some of you out there, are experiencing this and you'd love to be a guest on our show, right?
Yeah. I mean, we'd like to stay on trends this season for sure. So don't hesitate to write in about things that are happening real time out in sort of like the macro world, and we'd like to chime in on that with our thoughts. But what was your favorite episode from season 1?
We had so many great guests, and I enjoyed them all. There were several that I missed. There was several that I missed in a row of some really fun guests, and going back and listening to those episodes were always fun to do. But I have to say my favorite were the ones that were just us and our team. So that last one, and I don't even know that it will come out by the time this one has come out, right? But we have a whole great episode that you can go back and listen to that is just Q&A from our listeners. And the fact that we had so much great
We had a lot to get through.
We had a lot to get through. But just there's so much good information in that. And there's a few very serious questions in that we were able to really approach, I think, in a thoughtful way, and hopefully shed some light on some different things that do happen that are the reality of when we manage people. People come with all kinds of things: problems, excitement, concerns, issues, happiness, joy. They're just all the emotions. And we were able to kind of talk about some of those ups and downs of that in that Q&A episode. That one was really fun. And then you and Gabby and I did one, I think, just ourselves on mental health and mental health resources and being able to shed some light. And I think that was a really popular episode too, to be able to talk about what are some things that companies can do, because I think that's going to continue to be a big trend.
Yeah. And I think that can be a focus for us this season as well, tapping into mental health resources and also sharing just great people in our network that could be good resources for clients and listeners as well. Well, I'll tell you what, we've got quite a few write-ins, and so I don't want to go off script too badly. We got to get to the write-ins today. And it's only the two of us.
It's the two of us, so we've got plenty of time for some write-ins.
What's so fun is that we've got write-ins from our TikTok. We've got write-ins from the Apple podcast. We have write-ins from Albany, New York, from Pennsylvania, from Wilmington, North Carolina, where we're located. So it's really cool. Let's start with the folks who are closest to us, and that's in Wilmington. I've got to write in, is it common practice to take PTO or vacation when an employee goes over allowance of sick or bereavement days? Is there an alternative?
Oh my gosh. Another question about PTO, sick days, bereavement days. So bereavement's a little bit of a different thing. I would not advise companies to lump bereavement in with PTO and sickness. I don't think that someone losing a relative or a friend or whatever relates to the same. It's not the same thing. It's not the same time off. Those need to be looked at in a different way and given any time someone experiences a loss, not just if they have enough time, right? So that's every single time. If that happens and someone passes away, you get that amount of time. It's not like a maximum in a year. So setting bereavement aside, but what is it? So they're over in 6 days. I mean, for me, here's the deal. Like we've talked about this, I think when Wayne, you can go back and listen.
Yes.
I think Will and Wayne, both of our employment attorneys that were on here, talked about PTO. There are some states that differentiate, and you have to differentiate sick days with PTO days. Many states do not. So a lot of companies just look at it as one bucket.
As
right?
long as you've got
one
enough
big
to go
bucket.
around, it's usually fine.
But a lot, the sick days are there for you to use. If you don't need them, you don't get to keep them, right? You kind of
You
start over every year.
You leave,
Yeah. So sometimes that looks different. But what I would say, it's how egregious is it? If someone needs a couple extra days, it's the end of the year, the business can allow it, there's nothing happening, just give them the time off. Are they a salaried employee and they probably put their hours in? And, unless you're giving them 6, 7, 8 weeks of PTO, you probably only give them 3, 4 weeks. Can you give them 2 extra days? Like, this is not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I agree. It's like I took my 3 days of PTO to go to my dad's funeral, but like I still need to go take care of his estate. I need to help my sisters clean his house out. I need to sell his car in Raleigh. Like, I mean, for God's sake, yeah, let him take the PTO. That's definitely so what is the right thing to do? That's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also you said like, I mean, would it be crazy to let somebody take 6 weeks of like personal leave with a couple of weeks of vacation to go take care of something? You know, they were the sole kind of caretaker for their elderly mom, and I need a leave to just go get everything right so I can come back and be 100% at the company. Like, could you do it? Is that the right thing to do? Would it slam your business in any way? Like, if it wouldn't, try to think of a way to make, like, how do you make it happen?
Yeah.
It's kind of back to like, how do you get, I mean, that's going to drive a lot of loyalty if you can just bend over backwards and help that person.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're running businesses. I get it. The business is important. We all get that. We all understand that. It's an individual. It's one person. Can you work with them? Can you do something about it? I don't think the business is going to crumble. That person's not the CEO. You know, like they're an employee of your business. You probably have 50 other ones. Give them an extra time off if they need it.
Yeah.
And then if also, it's egregious, you deal with it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, let's not have these like blanketed policies that we overmanage just because we're worried people take advantage or whatnot. Then we deal with the ones that take advantage and we're generous to the rest.
That's so true. Like so often as managers, we freak out a little bit and we fear what we think might happen. But most of the time, 99.9% of the time, that never happens. So
no, I mean, I think we proved that with the companies that have gone to unlimited PTO. I mean, the amount that report that people don't take as much time off is a little bit scary, but
that's why
we want to take it off.
I mean, we moved to unlimited PTO and we require people to take at least one consecutive week of days.
Yeah.
Every year. And we monitor it every quarter. I mean, I've got my guys going through and being like, hey, you haven't taken a consecutive week yet. Just to make sure that, so people actually do take the time. But as far as the PTO goes, I mean, cut them a break, give them an extra day.
Yeah. We'll continue answering your PTO questions in the new year, though. Just
we're looking,
if you have any other issues.
Looking for them. Okay, in Pennsylvania, this person works for a nonprofit religious organization that has literally zero HR oversight. I studied HR courses in my master's, but am struggling with where to begin to write policies and procedures and even dealing with current FMLA issues. Thoughts on how to even begin? Yes. First of all, call us.
Get some help.
Get some help. A lot of times, like, going online and Googling things can be fine, but it's hard to know what to customize and what you can peel out and what you should leave in without being, like, a true HR expert. So for the time that it would take us to help you versus the time it's going to take you to go Googling and researching and talking to an employment attorney for $400 an hour, like, you should probably look into somebody who's like a fractional HR. If not us, go ahead and look for somebody in Pennsylvania. Yeah. Although we work up and down the East Coast, including for Penn State. So you probably don't have to abide by FMLA rules if you're a smaller organization. But I mean, if
you
you're
have less
a giant,
than 15 employees, you don't.
50.
50, sorry.
50. If you have less than 50, then you just need to have like some basic guidelines on leave of absence policies and have some good kind of options for folks if they do get sick and you want them to be able to protect their jobs. But it won't be FMLA if you have under 50 employees.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, it's not protected under FMLA. I mean, I'm sure you could certainly, if you want to make those accommodations and follow those same guidances that someone might get. If you want to be more generous, you can always be more generous, right?
And FMLA really isn't that generous. Like, it's just unpaid leave.
It's just legally protecting your job. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, like, not really that great. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's okay, but it's not great. But, I mean, so you should definitely be thinking about talking to an expert on policies. I mean, the other thing too is get a trusted employment attorney that's pretty pragmatic. Like the Will Oden and that crew with Ward and Smith down here are phenomenal because he thinks like an HR person versus thinking like an attorney who just wants to cover, CYA on everything. And then you got to kind of figure out like, well, what am I actually allowed to get away with?
Right.
That'll make sense for the business. So get a good employment attorney that's
Yeah,
licensed in
I
PA.
think, yeah, I mean, a lot of the employment attorneys we work with at our like different companies or consult with and stuff, the ones I've worked with in my last company, you're right. Like they think like us because we're all kind of trying to do the same thing, make sure we're fair to the employees while also protecting the business,
Yeah.
right? So we kind of have to, we weigh both sides. We've got to do certain things to be consistent from a business aspect, but I would agree, like our employment attorneys, our HR, we're always kind of like, what can we do? What should we do? What is the right thing to do? What would be consistent? And then making sure we're also following and abiding by legal guidelines too. But a lot of times we try to be more generous than the law would require us to be, because a lot of states, the law has not really caught up with.
No, it was like written in 78. Yeah.
Leadership.
Yeah. With that 80s mentality.
Exactly.
So anyway, give us a call. Albany, New York. Okay, so I'm gonna just truncate a little bit of what this person wrote in. They acknowledged the fact that this was a lengthy one, but this is somebody that's kind of in our space. They do a lot of training. Sounds like that they left a job that they were with for quite a while as a corporate trainer. They moved to a new position, maybe outside of training. Then I guess somebody found out in management that they had this training background. This person, I think, told them a little bit about what they had done in a previous life. They've been busting it for projects for the team. And here's where they're upset. And they want to kind of gauge, are they in the right? Are they not in the right? Like, what do we think about what's going on? So they got a new title that comes with new and larger set of responsibilities and expectations at this company, okay? And they're not getting compensated for it. So that's one. Number two, they've been working in the role since September. It's December. And even if they get an adjustment in January, it won't take effect till February 16th. And that would mean 5 months of being in this trainer job without being what they basically chalk up to not being compensated correctly. So what do they do? Should they go to HR for something like this? What's kind of our opinion on, am I being crazy to be upset about this situation? Like, what do you think?
Well, I certainly don't think you're being crazy. If you feel a certain way, then it deserves a conversation from someone, whether that be with whoever your direct supervisor is, which I think is the first person to go to, your direct manager. And also loop in HR if you don't get, the response. I don't always say like what you're looking for, but if the response isn't well received or you kind of don't get much, then maybe your HR people are also there. It depends on your organization, how it's set up. But yeah, if you're feeling a certain way, I mean, I think compensation is important. I think we should always be addressing concerns and compensation. I think that people have to feel like they're being compensated fairly for the role they're doing. So that being said, we don't have any of those details. So I don't know how much this individual makes. I don't know what their last job title is, what their new job title is. What I'll tell you is, pay ranges of many jobs are close enough. They're wide enough that if you were in the range of both jobs, they might say, like, you're still in the range. Maybe you're lower in this new range than you were in the old one. But if you're still in the range, maybe it doesn't warrant. Maybe you're so new with the company that it could have fit either way. So there could be some reasons there. But you need to have a conversation so that you can hear some of those things. And it could be that there's no reasons for it, too. So we don't really know. It could be that what I will tell you is that advice in your future is talk about compensation the minute you get the role, right? That has to be something that, yes, do companies need to be doing that for their employees? Absolutely. But we don't run every single company. We're not there to advise every single company. And we know that that doesn't happen. So you as an employee also need to be saying, well, what is my new compensation for this new role?
Yeah.
So you just added these skills and responsibilities.
Well, let's say they did. Let's say they did ask that.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're being reassigned. We're truncating your role and you're getting reassigned to this instructional designer or this corporate trainer position. And right now we can't really afford to give you anything for it. Let's see how you do and I'll give you something in a couple of months.
Listen, I've been in that position before, and it's like been told like, hey, you got the job. Your counterpart, they got a severance package when we reorged and combined roles. And now, yes, your responsibility is double the size that it was. Your region's now twice the size that it was when you took the job 4 months ago. But your counterpart is out there shopping for a new job. So you could be her. And like, it was like, so no, you're not getting a pay increase. You should be happy with this. Now, a few months later, because I worked for a good company, they went back and they changed it. And they actually went back and like adjusted our pay from the time.
Wow.
But it's still,
that's unheard of. That's wonderful.
It was like 5% for the fact that my region went from 4,000 employees to 8,000 employees.
But still to go back.
But yes, they did the right thing. They backdated it. They said like, we didn't do that correctly when it happened. But again, I think I worked for a pretty phenomenal place. So, and I think that we always kind of did the right thing by doing something like that. A lot of companies, you know, if you're not going to challenge them on the pay and they can get away with paying you the same thing they did, and you're going to like do that job to the best of your abilities for 6 months, they're going to let you do that.
I've had this argument with managers over the years, which is like, well, I'm taking a chance on them. Let's put them in the position. Let's see how they do 6 months from now. Let's evaluate it. And
I can't.
It bothers me to my core.
Me too.
I'm like, we either believe they can do it, and this is the job, and here's the range, and let's try to get them close. Because if we went externally, we would pay, the at least in range. And so there is a bit of a loyalty tax to, being promoted internally. And so we got to really be careful as organizations that we're taking care of the people who are putting in the time and have institutional knowledge. And are very valuable for us in ways that we may not always completely appreciate. So
I think you have to be realistic about the quality of work, too. I had this conversation last week with a client of ours that I said, I'm like, well, yes, that individual accepted the pay that you gave them, but here's what you're paying them. Here's what their experience was. They were probably making a significant amount more in their last job with the same experience and skills, right? Yes, they took this job. That's what you gave them. They accepted that pay. I go, but you're wanting them to like perform to this level that they, this $100,000 a year salary level, but you're paying them half of that. So like, I think they're giving you
they're giving you $50,000
the quality of what you kind of invested in them.
Right.
And I think they could give you a lot more, but they don't feel it from you. And until they feel like you're also going to compensate them in a fair way, they're not going to give you 100%. They're giving you about 75% of their ability right now.
Look, we can't be upset with that. I mean, there's some folks that are always going to give you so much extra discretionary effort. It doesn't matter if you're paying them $30,000
and never
you're paying
ask
them
for
$200,
more.
and they'll never ask for more. But there are a lot of people that have a lot of options out there. And so if you've got strong performers who have other options, you might want to consider making it right and just taking care of them proactively so that they don't feel like they have to back you into a corner and kind of feel slighted and have a little chip on their shoulder about that. Maybe not outwardly, but it does feel good to be recognized proactively versus having to go and fight and defend your position as a great employee. I mean, just pay them what they're worth.
I agree. So to our write-in, if you are listening, hopefully you are, you got to address it. You got to go have a conversation. You have a conversation with the manager. You have a conversation with HR, whether it resolves anything or not. You at least got to have the conversation.
The other thing too, and I tell employees this, I tell family members this, like, if you're going to go in and ask for a pay raise, do not expect that manager to know everything about your experiences that you're coming to the table with. Come with like a little one pager on yourself, where you worked before, 3 or 5 career highlights, like objective things you accomplished as like a professional in this type of role. And then so you can kind of give them some really good meat and context on who you are as a professional, why you are worth what you're about to ask for. So, and you better have a number in mind, right? And so if they say, well, okay, you're making 75 and I'll give you 78. Well, if you had in your mind it was 90 or nothing, then you better be ready to start looking for another job because you got to stick to your guns a little bit or you're just going to be disgruntled and unhappy hanging around being a mope and nobody wants a toxic mope around the workplace. So go find another job if they don't give you the money and if that's super important to you, start looking.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have options. Employees have options. So gain the skills while you're there and figure out how to apply those skills somewhere else that's going to pay you what you think you're worth.
Yeah. All right. What was the other part to that question? It was, do you go to HR? Okay. We answered it all. Great. Okay. From the Apple podcast, I'm currently interviewing for new roles within my company. I'm a remote-based employee in Nevada. Oh, cool. We've never had a Nevada rating. Yay.
Yeah.
This makes me happy. Nevada has labor laws that require employers to not research or utilize my current pay when making an offer to me. Okay. A recruiter recently told me that my salary expectations were unreasonable when it was mid-range because of what I currently make. Is there anything I can do to ensure I'm protected without risking my relationship with this recruiter? So it's interesting because I do know there's like things like Zoom Info and other kind of internet scrubbing platforms that do pull up. Like if I looked you up.
I could be wrong, but I thought the law was just that they can't ask you what you make. That doesn't mean that they wouldn't be able to say, I'm an HR director, so this is what an HR director at your company is listed on Glassdoor as making.
Yeah, who knows where they got the info from?
Yeah. So I think that they just can't ask you. I could be wrong, and I've never had Nevada as a state, so I do not know.
I would tell them, hey, look, I think it's as simple as the role is worth $90,000 to $150,000. I'm willing to make a move from my current role for $120,000. If that's not acceptable, this isn't a great role for me.
And that's not a great recruiter for you to be talking to. The recruiters should be working for you as much as they're working for the company. And if that's the pay you want, I think the conversation you have with the recruiter is, regardless of where they got the information, again, the law is the law. If you want to actually challenge them on that, that's up to you, right? I don't think it's worth it personally to challenge them on where they got that information or asking you if you.
I don't even know what you don't want to answer. You could go file a DOL claim, I guess.
Yeah,
what's
if you
want to, they won't get back to you for 6 months anyway.
We never recommend that, but I mean sometimes. But that is certainly not what I would recommend here. I would simply say, well, I'm not going to tell you what I currently make because what I currently make is not what I want to be making. Here's what I want to be making.
And who are you to tell me what it's worth to muck up my whole life and leave an employer I've been with and I'm comfortable with and I know the product and I know the people. And it's like, no, I get to choose what it's going to cost.
And I'm guessing that based on how the person kind of said it, that recruiter, because they don't want to jeopardize that relationship, the recruiter probably works for the employer, or trying to find for the employer. And this isn't like a recruiter maybe working like a headhunting type person. So it could be that. And it's just well, I mean, then that says a lot maybe about that person and the company that they're working for.
Right.
Maybe you want to think about talking to some other companies.
Well, also too, there's a lot going on right now with salary transparency and putting ranges on roles. And it sounds like she or he saw the range on the role and came mid-range. Probably based on posted salaries. And
or their own research.
I would challenge the recruiter, if anything, if they're like an in-house recruiter for this company, I would challenge them on, hey, is the range baloney? Which, by the way, that's illegal. That's more of a concern for me is with salary transparency. They're beefing it up so they get better candidates, and then they're trying to lowball you based on some Zoom info information or Glassdoor information they're digging up on you. So I would challenge them on, is the range the real range or is it inflated for some reason?
Yeah.
Because it seems like maybe there's something weird.
I agree. I mean, personally, I get that. I understand that's the law in Nevada. That's fine. Many of my states that I've worked in the Northeast and the South, that's not a thing here. I personally think we've got to be honest on salary both ways. I think companies need to be transparent. I think employees that are looking for other jobs also need to be transparent. I don't think it's a problem to say here's what I'm currently making. This is what I want to make though, right? And here's my range. So I think what I would always tell and what I don't experience as much is candidates having a reasonable range as well. A lot of times they just have this number and it's maybe the highest number because they want to start there because they think that's the way to negotiate.
Yeah.
But like, I think both people have to have a range in mind. You know, what would I accept, but what would I want, right? And what's that range? Maybe that range is a little smaller than what a company's range would be. But I think if we're going to get to the right number on both sides, we have to be open and transparent. And it's very hard to do that when like people aren't allowed to talk to you about certain parts of that. So,
Yeah. And also,
I don't write the law.
Yeah,
so.
having a range. So to your point, having a range from a candidate perspective is good too. And you're like, well, why would I tell somebody I would take 120 to 150 when I mean, I'd rather have 150. Well, yeah, you'd rather have 150, but what if you got to pay all of your medical insurance and that's $21,000 a year?
Right.
Like, wouldn't you take, 145 and they pay 100% of the? So you just got to do like
sometimes
apples
if people
to
know that
apples
they're
and get
able
the
to
total
say
comp.
like, well, we could come in with base, at 120. But then we could kick on an extra 10 on the bonus, right? Like structure, right? So it's like it gives you some information to negotiate with. And again, I think your range is a little smaller than a company's range might be, negative 20 to positive 20. But like yours might be, $20,000 both, each way. But I just think in order to like get there and make both parties feel the negotiation is there, we have to be honest on both sides. So that's hard to do when the law is limiting us.
So ask a lot of questions about total compensation beyond just the base salary, because there might be a lot there that's really good.
Yeah.
Who knows? Cool.
I think there was one more.
There
maybe.
was. Let's check it out. Okay. I turned in a peer. This is from TikTok. I turned in a peer for sexually harassing his previous employees, who are now my employees. My HR representative laughed at me.
That's not okay.
Kind of a little weird.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And my regional manager accused me of fabricating the whole thing. 4 different women came forward with different stories and different witnesses. 5 weeks later, I was let go for performance, having never had a negative performance review. I don't regret turning him in, but even so, was I required to do so as a general manager, given it wasn't at my location? Also, they deleted the emails about it that I sent to HR when I tried to gather evidence the day they let me go. But it was the only thing they deleted. Also, I asked HR about it, and they said they'd never do that.
There's
interesting.
A lot.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. I mean, obviously, there's a great concern of the fact that that individual was let go for performance-related things and never coached on performance. I mean, that's kind of a whole separate thing. There's like 2 separate issues happening here. I think they probably have a pretty good retaliation claim. I mean, I would say from an employment, maybe you want to find yourself an employment attorney, but I think you probably got some claims there. And then I seems a little like that, but
well, with the employment attorney too. So everything is recoverable and discoverable. Once something is sent over the internet, it can always be reclaimed. There's forensic software out there that actually one of our clients, Tritech Forensic, sells. But like there's forensic software that lawyers use to go and dig that stuff up. It doesn't matter how hard they try to wipe their hard drive this audience member. You're going to get the emails if they get subpoenaed.
Well, so, it sounds like the individuals probably still work there. So I want to answer the question that this individual asked on, am I obligated to turn in if I know, even if it wasn't my location, blah, blah. The answer is, yeah, you are. So if you know something and you're a manager or you're in a position of any kind of leadership role and something is reported to you, you are obligated to report that. Now, it's a shame that when you did that, they did not take that seriously and investigate those concerns. But just as say they had investigated those concerns or those concerns came up and then it was found out that you did know about it and you didn't turn it in, then
that would be very fireable.
Yeah. So then you put your own, role kind of in jeopardy. So yes, regardless of if it's not your location or it's not your manager, it's if you are in a position like that and you hear about something, you have to say it. Yeah,
guys, sexual harassment is so serious to address and address it in a very timely manner. And it can be something as stupid as, and easy to solve as, hey, I didn't really like it when you looked at me that way. Or I always noticed that My boss is looking at my breasts when we're talking. It's like, well, you just got to tell them, like, hey, I think you'd probably want to know about this, that there's a few ladies around the office that think this is what you do.
Yeah.
Just want you to know so you can fix it. And I've had people actually fix it and they never did that again. They eye contact, hello.
Yeah.
But then there's egregious things like, getting drunk at office events and like being forced to sleep with like a manager or a coworker. And that's like teetering on assault. There's lots of laws around even, discriminating against somebody for their hairstyle and making people, wear their hair a certain way. And that is discriminatory in itself. And so there's all kinds of different levels of harassment, from things that you can address with a stop right now, do you understand, to fireable offense and potentially even criminal offenses that have to get reported to the law. So you definitely want to get familiar with harassment training for all of your employees as well as your managers. Your managers are your frontline defense. They're your greatest asset. They're also your greatest liability if they don't understand, which it sounds like maybe general managers for this company don't understand what the obligations are, what the policies are, how it gets handled once a complaint is made, what the follow-up should be, who's handling the complaint. And by the way, if the HR department is ill-equipped to handle this, you need to be outsourcing it to someone who can do thorough investigations and protect your butts from a lawsuit.
You could lose your whole business, in one claim like that. So
it's serious.
They're serious. They need to be reported. It's a shame what happened after you reported it, but sounds like you don't regret reporting it, which is good.
That is good.
And I'm sorry that you lost your job. And I don't know if those things were related, but I think you got a really good case to find out if maybe they were.
Yeah.
If you need names of good employment attorneys, reach out to us.
Give us
on
a call.
LinkedIn.
Also, we do
We'll
sexual
refer you to
harassment
somebody.
training. So at your next employer, make sure that you're getting it done with professionals that have great kind of situational things to work through with both employees and supervisors. So that's it for the write-ins today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Participating
season 2, episode 1 of HR Nightmares, where we want you to wake up to realistic advice. We do have some really awesome opportunities as we talk about things like background checks and what kind of payroll systems people should be using to keep great time records, how you can manage learning and development.
Yeah.
We are looking for sponsors. And
benefits.
So, yes, what kind of benefits should people be looking into? Wellness perks. And so we're in a really awesome period in the life cycle of HR Nightmares where we're actively looking for sponsors. So if you are a benefits broker, if you have an HR information system, if you have a wellness technology, if you're a 401k or financial advisor, what else?
If you do background check. Background check.
Give us a call.
Recruiters, ZipRecruiter.
Yeah. ZipRecruiter.
Indeed. Good hire.
We love to talk to you. And these are very affordable sponsorships. If you want to be the mic sponsor, we're always looking for a beer sponsor. So please reach out to us. Thank you very, very much. It's been a blast. Season 1 was amazing. We're very excited for this season and to kick off 2023 with you guys. Get those write-ins in, get that free HR advice, and listen to us on YouTube and anywhere you listen to podcasts. This is HR Nightmares. I'm Lisa Leath.
I'm Amy Conway.
Thank you so much for listening. Bye.